Today we'll break down ASP.NET Identity and explain registration, email confirmation, logging in and logging out of a .NET 6 application. So let's get coding. As you're probably aware, you don't need to customize identity pages to have a working solution. This just works out of the box. But this is not the purpose of this tutorial. And this leads me to the two main goals of this explanation video. One is to expose the authentication logic that happens behind the scenes, and we'll be able to do that doing something called scaffolding. And doing this will allow us to further customize authentication pages in the future. And two, because this is a two-part series of videos, this would be part one, we'll integrate ASP.NET Identity with Identity Server 4. So it is really important to master the basics of ASP.NET Identity. So keep an eye out for part 2, where we'll take everything that we learn about ASP.NET Identity and integrate that with Identity Server 4. Check out the description for the exact date, and without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so open up Visual Studio 2022, create a new project, and then we'll choose a Blazor server project. If you haven't got it in the recent project templates, then search for it. So Blazor server. Blazor server app, and then I'll call mine identity app, and then give it a location. Next. And then in terms of the framework, I'll leave mine to .NET 6, and the authentication type should be individual accounts. This way, we'll implement Microsoft Identity authentication type, and nothing changes in terms of these two checkboxes. Configure for HTTPS and click Create. Okay, so as we're here, the first thing that I would like to do is go in the app-settings.json and change the connection string to point to our DB. So in my case, the server name would be IOPC, and then the database. Let's change this from ASP.NET dash identity app dash and then a unique GUID to just identity app DB. So I'll remove the GUID and then identity app DB. This way, when it comes to actually updating the database and working with the database, our database will be called identity app DB. That can be found on the server io-pc. Okay, so that's it with this step. And for the purpose of this video, what we'll need to do is obviously scaffold the identity pages. And this is not a necessary step in a regular application because they are already being used. However, if we want to customize them and walk through the logic that's behind registration, logging in, logging out, confirmation, registration, if we want to look into the logic on these pages, we need to scaffold these identity pages. And to do that, we'll need to install a package first. So if we close out this one and right click on the dependencies and manage NuGet packages, and then in here, go to Browse and paste in the following package: Microsoft Visual Studio Web Code Generation.design, and install the latest stable version, which is 6.0.0, and then accept the licenses. So then now, because we have installed this, let's click Save. What we can do now is right click on the project and go to Add, and then New Scaffolded Item. And then from this list, we'll go to Identity and choose Identity. So in here, what we need to do first is to select a layout.c# HTML page. We need to specify it before getting overridden. So if we don't specify it, it will be overridden. So if we go to Pages and then we choose layout.c# HTML, so that's that. And then we could as well do override all files. However, we really don't need that many files. So let's expand this a bit, and we'll choose a few things by choice, and what I believe is the most important to cover as part of this video. Okay, so we've got register confirmation, confirm email, login, and register. We've already got logout, so we're not going to override that. And let's choose the application DB context from the data context class. And as soon as we've done this, we're good to go. So let's press add. If you enjoyed this video so far, hit that like button so that this video can spread to as many people as possible. I would really appreciate it. Okay, and by default this will be open, so let's delete this one because we won't need it anymore. What we need to do now is update the database, and to do that is really simple. Open up Package Manager console, and then in here type in update database and run this. In order to check if this has worked, well, obviously you will see the error messages here if nothing worked. So open up, connect to your instance, go to databases and expand the database, and you should have an identity app DB database with a bunch of identity tables. So as you can see in here, and I'll make sure to zoom in editing, we've got a few ASP.NET identity entities created here, so a few tables created for us. The first one obviously being the entity framework migrations history, where we've got a record of each migration that we run. But then we've got role claims, roles, user claims, user logins, user roles, ASP.NET users, and ASP.NET user tokens. And for this particular tutorial, for this particular video, we'll focus only on ASP.NET users. So by default, this is empty. This hasn't got any users, and that makes sense because we will be registering users as we go. I think before doing anything, let's first run the app and let's see what it looks like, what the registration, what logging in looks like, and what the actual pages of the app look like at this point in time. Okay, so here is the application, the home, counter, and the fetch data page, and we've got a few pages that pertain to the ASP.NET Core identity. So the first one is register and login, and let's click on register and let's navigate to that page to see what we've got. As you can see, we've got an invalid operation exception. The following sections have been defined, but have not been rendered by the page at layout.c#html, and then we've got scripts to ignore, blah, blah, blah. We'll not do this, but what we will do is go back to the project, go to pages, and then open up layout.c#html. And then scroll down to the bottom of this page and add this line in. So this line says render section scripts. So any scripts that will be rendered as part of child components, and set the required flag to false. And what this means is that some of the pages that we'll work with will have a script embedded, and render that script if that's present. However, that's not compulsory, so not every single page will have it, so don't enforce this. So if you save this and hot reload, and if this doesn't work, then restart the application, this should alleviate that particular error. So let's go back in here, and as you can see, we've got hot reload. And the styling is a bit skewed, but that's fine. We're not worried about the styling. Okay, I just wanted to let you know that I post weekly tutorials about .NET and coding in general, so if you're interested in that, hit subscribe and join our club. So this is the registration page, and let's actually get back to the home page, and then the login looks just like this, so it's pretty similar. Okay, so we'll start with the registration page, and let's open up the actual file to walk through the logic from when you click on the register button, what actually happens at that point. So if we expand areas, identity, pages, account, and then we've got register, and we're actually going to work with the code behind. So this is where we'll do the explanation. So let's get rid of that. And this is it, the on post async. We create an instance as soon as we click register, so the register button. We create an instance in memory of that newly registered user. We set the username and the email address, and then we create it in the database. At this point, the user is saved in the database. If that has succeeded, then I grab a hold of the newly inserted user ID, and then generate a unique token, encode that token, create a callback URL where you'll include the user ID and the newly generated encoded token that's very specific to that user. and take this callback URL and send an email to the user with it. So as soon as the user clicks on that link, they will be redirected to the confirm email page, where the email address will be then confirmed. Because we haven't got an email client set up as part of this project, nor will we create one as part of this video, because we want to keep things simple. ASP.NET Identity, what they do for us is redirect to a register confirmation page, because we're not going to be able to open up this email that's just been sent. In order to click on the button, we are then sent to the register confirmation page with the return URL, with the email and the return URL. So without further ado, let's go to the page and let's try a few things. So test add email.com, and then we'll choose pass to, and then an @ sign, pass to, and then an @ sign. So let's click register, and what I'll do is I'll add a breakpoint right here. Yeah, and then click register. So what I'll do is step through the code and show you as things occur. So a new user instance has been created. And then the username and the password are the username and the email address are defined. So as you can see at this point, nothing is inserted in the database. The database is empty. We have no users. However, as soon as we step over this, there you go. It's going to take a while. If we click F5, press F5, then as you can see, the newly generated user has been inserted in the database. Well, with email confirmed set to 0. So what this means is that the user is not yet confirmed, and this is really important. You are not going to be able to log in the system if this flag is set to 0, which is good. So the result succeeded, and we step over that. So we grab the user ID, which let's see, ends with DBA. So here it is, ends with DBA. So this is correct. And then let's generate a code. So this is the unique code that's been generated for us. It's just a long piece of string of numbers, characters, letters, you name it. And then let's encode that. So that's now encoded, and then attach it to the callback URL. So this is the callback URL. This is a long URL that contains the user ID and the encoded token. And then we take this callback URL, we encode it again, and we attach it to an email that we'll send to test@email.com. That email doesn't even exist. Okay, and then if this flag is true, require confirmed account, then redirect to the confirmation page. However, what I'd like to do is open up register confirm page right here, and scroll down to the on get async. So I'll put a breakpoint here as well. So let's click continue, and as you can see, we are here at this point. So this page now simulates you looking at an email address. So it shows you basically it shows you the fact that you can actually confirm the newly created account. So let's step over this. Okay, find email find user by email, and the email is obviously has been passed in through the URL, so it's a query parameter. Okay, and if it's null, then obviously throw a not found, but then if it's not null, go ahead and carry on the logic. Okay, so what this is doing now is grabbing the user ID and the user code that pertains to this particular user. So this basically regenerates a code for this user, and then does the same thing. It encodes that token that's been generated for this user. It encodes that token and defines the email confirmation URL with the URL that's basically the same exact thing as we've done as part of the registration page. So right here. Okay, so if we go back to this and then let's click continue, and we don't need this. So register confirmation. Obviously, it lets us know the fact that we haven't got an email sender yet, and normally this would be email. So this, click here to confirm your account. This actually contains the, so if I copy link address, this actually contains the long URL with identity account / confirm email with the user ID and the code. So this is the long encoded URL. So this is what that does. But before going to the confirm email page, let's actually open it. So confirm email, double click on the page, and then scroll down to on get async. Put a breakpoint here. So now we are ready to actually click on it. That will actually redirect us to that page. So click here to confirm. Okay, so we've got the user ID and the code, the two query parameters, the two URL parameters that we have seen in that URL when we pasted it. Okay, so let's step over this, and all that it does, this function is finds the user by the user ID, and if it's null, throw not found. But if it is not null, then look what happens. User manager is invoked, and the specifically the confirm email async based on the user and the code generated. So again, if I get the recently created user, the email confirmed is 0. But then as soon as we step over this, you'll see that the email confirmed flag is turned now to 1, which means that the user has confirmed their registration. And this is really important. Should they have received this on an email, they would have clicked on that link that would have redirected them to this specific page, to the confirm registration page. Okay, so clicking continue will take us to the page, to this page saying, or will actually show us this message saying confirm email. Thank you for confirming email. So that is what the registration process looks like from under the hood. Okay, so two other things that I would like to touch on are the login page and the logout page. So the login page is this. It's got an email and the password. So let's close everything down and let's go ahead and open the login page. Okay, and then here we go to on post async method. All this does is uses the sign-in manager and invokes the password sign-in async. And this is called like this because you have multiple methods, such as the external login async as well, where you pass in a login provider, the provider key, and so on. So in our case, we'll only work with password sign-in async. What we'll do, because this is individual accounts identity, we'll log in with an email and a password. So this password sign-in async is used along with the inputs email. So these are the fields right here: email, the password, and we'll see and the remember me checkbox right here. Okay, and the lockout on failure is set to false, and obviously Microsoft recommends this to be set to true. For the purposes of this tutorial, of this video, we'll leave this as it is, but just make sure that you set this to true, so that if the user gets the email or the password wrong 3 times, their account will be locked. And obviously, if the result has, so if this particular call has succeeded, in other words, if we were able to log in the user, if their email and password matched the records, then I'll go ahead and redirect the user to the return URL, so to homepage in this case. However, if they're locked out, then redirect them to the lockout page, where potentially it will say something along the lines of your account is now locked. Okay, so let's try that now. So test@email.com with the password of pass2 and then an @ sign. Okay, so let's step over the lines. Okay, external logins 0, so we haven't got any external logins for now, and the model state is valid. Then attempt to sign in the user, and let's see the result. The result has succeeded, as you can see, and then it will redirect us to the home page. There you go. So now we have it. But what about logout? And let's close this. Let's open the logout page. And it's right here. All this method does, when all this page does, is it uses the sign-in manager and calls the sign-out async. And what this sign-out async does is obviously signs out the user, but also one very important thing that it does is if you open up DevTools and you go to cookies and you select the first one right there, then this right here has been a core.identity.application. This cookie right here will be deleted as soon as we click logout. So let's click logout. And in here, the on post will be called. Then if the user is signed in, then go ahead and sign them out. So you'll see that we haven't got the that particular cookie in there anymore because that's been removed once we signed out. But let's suppose that based on whether or not the user is authenticated, let's say we want to show parts of a page or hide, depending on. So let's say, for instance, in this particular, on this page, let's not show this table if they're not authenticated. Okay, so to do this, we'll use the authorized view component. So let's open up one of the pages, which is fetch data, because that's what we talked about. And what we'll do here is where everything happens. So potentially here, we'll add the new component. So authorized view. And because we've added this exposes then two other components. So they are called authorized, and obviously not authorized. So not authorized. Yep. And let's cut all this table logic from right here, and let's paste this in the authorized block. Yeah. And for not authorized, just add in a paragraph to say, please log in first. Yeah. Hot reload, and let's see what we've got. Obviously, if you need to restart the application, of course, restart the application, and then let's see what we've got. Okay, so let's go to fetch data, and as you can see, we haven't got any table. So basically, this component authorized view stops specific elements from a page from being propagated. If you want to use authorized view to hide specific elements of the navigation bar, keep in mind that users might still be able to navigate to that page. So we'll actually go to hiding and authorizing specific pages in a moment. Okay, so let's log in now with test@email.com, and then with the password pass this, and that will probably get redirected to this page because I haven't taken out the breakpoint. Okay, so log in. Now we authenticate. Yep. And then we go to fetch data and we're able to see the data. But what if you want to hide an entire page? You want to let only authorized users access this specific page. Well, to do that, you go to the top of the page and you add an attribute right here, attribute called authorize. Yep. So hot reload or restart the application for this to take effect. Okay, so we've got the app open right now, and we can see this, but we're also authenticated. So if we log out, take out the breakpoint, of course. Okay, navigate back to fetch data, and it says not authorized. So one important thing to note right here is the fact that you must use this attribute, this authorized attribute right here on routable pages. So where you can see this page directive right here, that we can. So this must be a page that we inside the application can route to. This shouldn't be used in components, only on routable pages. But what happens if we actually want to navigate to the login page once we get to a page where we are not authorized to see? So Let's actually do that. So if we stop the application, so if you open up Solution Explorer, it's at the route of your application, it's app.razor. So inside here, we'll make use of the authorized route attribute, and we'll expand this as currently it's a self-enclosing component. And let's expand this, and we've got a couple of things that we need to define right here: the authorizing and the not authorized. So the authorizing is the moment that's the application is attempting to authorize. So what we wish to show the user while it's doing that. It's not going to do it for very long, so it's not really important. It's not that important what we show in there. But then inside the not authorized, we'll create a new component. So don't worry, this is not yet created. We'll create a new component inside the pages namespace. So right here inside the pages area. And we'll call that unauthorized. And then in terms of the authorizing, we'll show verifying authentication state. So it's just a simple message. You can show this whatever you want. But then this is a component, so we'll need to import namespace as well. So we'll add a using to the identity app.pages, so that we'll make sure that when we create this, which will be in a second, it will be important and considered as part of this page a laser component. So a razor component. So let's create this component right now. Okay, copy the name, right click on the page, add new item, and then choose razor component and call it unauthorized. Okay, in here, inject the navigation manager because we'll use that to navigate to the login page, and then override the onInitialized async method that's provided as part of razor component. And then in here, just use the navigate to method to navigate to identity/account/login and set this this to true, which is the force load. So this will force the UI to re-render. So if we go back here, this is now showing with green, and if we F12 this, it should have taken us to the unauthorized component, but that's fine. It's with green, and we can see that it pertains to the pages and namespace. So let's run the application. Let's see if this actually redirects us, if we're not authorized, if this actually redirects us to the login page. Okay, so we are not authenticated, and let's go to fetch data, and as you can see, it redirects us to the login page, and it has us to log in. If the second part of this video series is out, which is ASP.NET Identity with Identity Server 4, check out the video right here. In the meantime, here is a video. I'll show you how to add authentication in a .NET 6 minimal API. Until next time, stay safe.